This is the 5th RTB chaplain with some important information on religious accommodation. First of all, what is religious accommodation? Religious accommodation is any adjustment to the work environment that allows our service members to practice their religion. And today I will talk briefly about why it's important to understand religious accommodation, and as leaders at 5th RTB, what it means for religious accommodation for fellow cadre, then also for Ranger students. And for any further information that you would like on religious accommodation, there will be plenty of additional information added to the share drive. It's found right around where you found this video. So go there for more info. I'd like to start out with just briefly talking about some examples that are very common when it comes to religious accommodation. We'll start with Latter-day Saints undergarments, or temple garments as they call them. What if you have a Ranger student that shows up and he's got his temple undergarments there for the packing list? They're not on the Ranger School packing list, and he says they're authorized, but they're not there. They're not on the actual list. So what do you do with that? The Jewish yarmulke. You have a Ranger student or a cadre that shows up with a yarmulke on their head. They say it's authorized. You're not sure. How do you deal with that? Somebody comes back from leave. They've married a Muslim, and now she wants to wear a hijab. How do you deal with that one? This is everybody's favorite religious accommodation. Somebody decides they want to grow a beard because they now practice a Nordic religion. We have vaccination issues, deal with religious issues going on there. We've got maybe somebody has staff duty or CQ, and they want to switch their duty date because of their religious faith and their practice and their worship, special worship holidays. How do you deal with that as a leader? We have maybe somebody wants some separate rats because of their faith, with some halals, some kosher vegetarian, things like that. And then maybe somebody wants to wear some long sleeve PTs during the summertime because their religion favors modesty. And so how do you deal with that in light of 680-1? So those are just a few things that we'll talk about, but you need to understand as leaders what to do in these situations and why. So we're going to cover some legal aspects, and then we'll cover some categories of religious accommodation, and then we'll come back to this. So basically, religious liberty is very important to us as Americans, but definitely as soldiers. The First Amendment of our Constitution says, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Dodie 1300.17 says, service members have the right to observe the tenets of their religion or not to observe any religion at all. Again, it goes on to say, components will accommodate individual expressions of sincerely held beliefs. And this is important as leaders because this is how you determine religious accommodations, which do not have an adverse impact on military readiness, unit cohesion, good order and discipline, or health and safety. Those are four very, very important things that you as a commander need to understand. And also, it is the soldier's responsibility, is AR 600-20, to demonstrate he or she has a sincerely held religious belief and that the government policy, practice, or duty substantially burdens their religious exercise. So what we learned from those very important documents is that as a leader, it is your job to do whatever you can to accommodate soldiers in their religious faith, unless it messes with military readiness, unit cohesion, good order and discipline, or health and safety. And so you are required as a leader to accommodate as best you can. You need to make every good effort possible. And then if the soldier wants to appeal, if you disagree with that accommodation request, then you need to have a really good reason why. But we're going to get into some other aspects of religious accommodation. There's 5 main types of religious accommodation, and there's 4 categories. So we're going to talk about the 5 main types of religious accommodation. You have worship practices, and this basically covers things like worshiping on their religious holiday. Maybe it's during Easter weekend, or a Latter-day Saint, or a Seventh-day Adventist, or a Muslim or a Jewish person. They all have different worship practices and dates that are important to them. Dietary practices. This goes into things like halal meals, kosher, vegetarian, some fasting practices. Medical care. This goes into things like immunizations and blood transfusions. Wear and appearance of the uniform. This goes into things like hijabs, religious bracelets and jewelry, different like undergarments that people wear. And then we have personal appearance and grooming. And this gets into things like uncut hair and beards, things like that. So the 5 main types of religious accommodations are important to know, but where it really gets into the nitty-gritty is when you start getting into the categories. And so we have 4 main categories of religious accommodation. And basically what these are is the level of accommodation determines how high that accommodation request goes up. Some, as we'll see, some religious accommodation requests have already been addressed in AR 600-1 and 600-20. But some of these have to go up to the Secretary of the Army. So that's what we're going to talk about next. Again, this is important for you as a leader to understand. Category 1, again, things that have already been approved. It's just that leadership usually is not up on this stuff. Things like worship services, like getting time off for worship services. This can even be as simple as allowing a Ranger student to go to the Yona service, or allowing the Ranger student to go to the change of mission service on Saturday morning. Those are things that the Ranger student is allowed to do, and you need to let them do that, or at least give them the opportunity. Things like the religious jewelry. And religious jewelry is very specifically outlined in 600-1. I think chapter 3, there's very specific on what's allowed and what's not allowed. Fasting practices and religious undergarments, things like that are not actually seen, and so that stuff's okay. Category 2 can be approved by the company commander, the lowest level commander. These are things like the PT uniform being adjusted, and separate rations. That's also lowest level company commander. And then exceptions to duty hours. So if a person has a duty on a day that he feels very strongly about, then he can come to the commander and make that religious request. And we'll talk about that process in a minute. Category 3 is where it starts to get very lengthy. This is like a 30-day process, and it goes from the company level to the battalion to the brigade to the general court-martial convening authority, or the service member's first 1-star. And these are things such as beards, hijabs, and a turban with uncut hair. These are the things that they can be temporarily suspended in case of mission requirements or health and safety issues. But that is a slightly lengthy process. It has to be conducted within 30 days, however. And then category 4 are very special requests, and these follow that same process as category 3, but then they also get forwarded to the Secretary of the Army. And those include things, smoking of peyote is one, immunization exemptions due to religious reasons, and then beard length exceeding 2 inches. A very brief level of the actual process is the service member makes a request via written memo. And this is sometimes, if the company commander wants to do that for level 2, he can, but these are generally for 3 and 4. Service member makes a written request to the company commander reviews it, and then forwards it to the chaplain. The chaplain will give an interview to the service member making the request, and the chaplain's looking for 3 things. He's looking for a religious basis of the request, he's looking for the sincerity, and then he's also looking for the level of burden applied to the service member if that request is going to be denied. And so the chaplain doesn't make a recommendation one way or the other, he just writes that information down in a memo format and then forwards it to S1. S1 builds a packet, and it goes to the brigade, battalion, brigade, and then up the chain depending on the level of category. So that's a very brief summarization of the process. And for a very detailed summarization, which there is one, go ahead and see those added documents on the shared drive right next to this video. So in conclusion, we're going to head back to our examples. And these are very common examples. I've seen quite a few. I know a lot of chaplain buddies that have seen most of these. We're just going to go down real quick and talk about each one very briefly. The Latter-day Saint, also known as Mormon, their undergarments, that is a Category 1 request. It's already been approved in 670-1. And so it's not visible. And any items such as this in jewelry factor this as well. They must not interfere with performance, safety, or with the proper wear of the authorized uniform articles. That's all Category 1. It's mostly been approved already. Number 2, that's also Category 1. It fits under the hat or the headgear, and so it's okay. Number 3, service member decides they want to wear a hijab. That is a Category 3, and so it must go all the way up to the, as we saw, the General Court Martial Convening Authority or the first 1-star. And so the deal with this is that they cannot wear that article of clothing until they actually have the documentation approval, which will happen one way or another. They'll get an approval or it will not be approved within 30 days, but they can't wear that until they actually have it. So yes, it is approved with the right process, and they can't wear it until that process is completed. The beard is a Category 3 unless it's longer than 2 inches, then it's Category 4. The vaccination is a Category 4. The switching duty, that's just a simple Category 1. Usually a service member can just switch out with somebody else. But you as the commander or leader need to give that service member every opportunity. And if you're going to deny that service member that or any of these, you need to have a very good reason. Because again, the Army absolutely leans towards personal freedom in practicing your religion. And so we as leaders need to respect that. Let's see, we got separate rations. That's pretty easy, Category 2. It's just simply a memo from the company commander to S1. And then the long sleeve PTs, that's also Category 2. Usually not a big deal. But again, as a commander, if it's one thing if it's, you know, the weather dependent, and if say the person's a prior heat casualty or so, you might need to make a recommendation one way or the other, but you just need to be able to back it up with a lot of common sense. And again, with all of these, they can't have an adverse impact on military readiness and cohesion, good order and discipline, or health and safety. If it doesn't do that, then you should absolutely make every effort to accommodate their religious requests. And so one other thing is that Ranger students who need a Category 3 or 4, they absolutely need to come from their unit with their documentation in hand. So don't let the Ranger students in the field say, hey Sarge, I'm not shaving because, you know, of my religious beliefs. Well, no, you need to see that documentation. And Darby should absolutely be giving us a heads up on that. But don't let those Ranger students get over any. So, in conclusion, religious accommodation. It's an adjustment to the work environment that will allow our service members to practice their religion. And it's your job, it's our job as leaders to accommodate as best as we possibly can. And again, if you want any further information on this, there's a lot of information on the shared drive found in the same folder that this video is found in. And so if you have any questions, see that, or you can come find me. But thanks for watching.